What's up, guys? It's John Dominique, the Soul Proponent, and I want to talk about the soul and mental health. I run into a lot of professionals in the field who either work at suicide prevention programs or people who work in faith-based organizations who aren't aware that the soul has anything to do with mental health. And I think that's a problem because it's not taught anywhere and people don't know any better. It's important that we know the soul, because without the soul, again, there's no self-worth. We don't feel any value in our lives. We feel our lives are meaningless, and we just go around feeling depressed. And, we think we can solve these problems on the level of ego. We don't realize that instead of trying to solve these problems, we need to understand them. And that's all we really need to do. There's not much more that needs to happen but to understand them on a deeper level, on the level of the soul and the spiritual aspect, the spiritual side. A lot of programs don't want anything to do with anything that can be scientifically proven, which is a mistake, because the ego has its demands and it thinks it can resolve these problems on its own terms. But unfortunately, that can't happen. God and the soul are the only thing that can cure our mental diseases. Without the soul, again, there's no self-worth, there's no value, there's no meaning to our lives, and we're not healthy, basically. And we have compulsions that run us, we have fear that govern our behavior, and it gets out of control, and most people don't know why. Again, because the soul is very much misunderstood. So it's the soul that's the missing ingredient that's necessary in order for us to have a stable mental outlook on life, perspective, and to know that we are one with God because of the soul. Without knowing that, there's no joy in our lives. We feel disconnected. We feel like something is wrong with our lives, and for good reason, because there is something wrong with our lives. We don't know God. We don't know ourselves. We don't know our own value. And there's a lot of self-hatred, which gets passed on through the generations, and it snowballs out of control. And again, this is not something that gets addressed anywhere. It's a social problem that people aren't aware of. But we need to understand that the soul is the most important ingredient for our mental health. Because without self-worth, we're not mentally stable. We've got issues such as gambling problems. We have greed, overworking, alcoholism. We've got mental illnesses. And these are the effects of living life without knowledge and awareness of our soul. And again, this doesn't mean that we have to go out and do anything at all. I think some people have a misconception that, we have to change things. We don't have to do anything but understand it. So we just need to listen. As soon as we try to move and do something to try to correct it, that's where the problem is. That's the ego. And the ego, its methods don't work. It tries to fix things, but it can't do it. It doesn't have the capacity. The only thing that can help us is God, and God is the soul. So we know the soul is a part of us. It's a way to tap into this part of us, and we need to be aware of this. And just understand that, these misconceptions about the soul as something here to destroy us, something here to annihilate us, it's the reverse. The soul is here to fulfill us. It's here to enhance our lives, to make our lives better. This is the source of unconditional love for ourselves and everyone else. It gets spread out and it gets passed on to everyone around us, because the soul is like an explosion of light and love everywhere, and we can't help but to do anything but love, because that's what we are. If anything gets in the way of this, then that's kind of a barrier. And the thing that really gets in the way is the ego, who we think we are, quote unquote. So the trap is that we're very attached to who we think we are, to this identity, this personality. And this blocks us from being aware of our own divinity and the soul. And the ego is very, very tenacious about staying attached to itself. And it really hates the idea of freedom and liberation. Well, it hates the process. It's actually trying to get to liberation and freedom, but it doesn't know the process, the way to go about it. And that's where we need to look into the path to the soul. There's multiple paths. I'm not saying my way is right, the only one way to do it. There's multiple paths that can work. But first of all, we just need to be aware of the soul and mental health, how these intersect each other, because without the soul, we're not mentally healthy. And we need to know this and pass this information on to other people so that other people can know and make it common knowledge. John Dominique, the Soul Proponent. Peace.